Can you hear me?
I can. I'm
Okay,
like so
girl.
excited. So sorry.
Okay, give me like 3 seconds of silence. I'm gonna go for it, okay? Ready?
Okay.
Okay. Welcome back, listeners. My name is Tasha Blake, and I thank you for returning for the second episode of What It's Like. This is a new podcast brought to you by DSS Productions and Studio Under the Stairs. I also want to give a shout out to all the people who gave their feedback about the first show. I'm happy to find out that multiple people share my irrational fear of sharks in fresh water, that people were and or are still terrified of ET, and that they took something interesting away from the content. Most notably about the nomophobia, which, as a reminder, is the fear of being without your cell phone. And fair enough, because we wouldn't be recording this episode today without one. As you may know, the aim of this show is to hone in on a single topic and really deep dive into the history, facts, research, and then combine it all with personal experiences and subjective opinions. Originally, I thought this was going to be a solo mission and that I might have to talk to people outside of recording, but I'm pleasantly surprised with the interest in having guests on the show already. The ultimate aim here is to create a community of connections so hosts and listeners can totally relate to one another. It is a safe place, most importantly. So, if you have something that you can no longer resist holding on to or that you'd like me to dissect, get in touch. Email me at flannelonflannelwithtosh@gmail.com or slide into my Instagram DMs at catharsis.on.canvas. And this brings me to my next point. It's only the second episode, and I already have somebody new to introduce to you. I'm super excited if you can't tell, because today I have an incredible co host joining me, hopefully for a recurring series on this podcast. Please welcome the beautiful, the talented, the intelligent, and the most amazing friend of mine, Kristina Fridman. Chris, I would like you to say hello to all the listeners and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi guys. Thanks, Josh. I'm so excited to be a part of this. It's actually really exciting, just in general, to be able to like see you doing this and just to have like a little piece and be a part of it as well. Um, so to give everybody an idea of who I am, again, my name is Kristina Fridman. Am happily married and have been married for about 5 years and been with my husband for a total of 7. I have a beautiful baby boy. His name is Liam. He's about 10 months old right now. Um, COVID has allowed us really cool life changes. And right now we're actually back in my hometown and kind of getting settled here. So I'm just really excited to be doing this with you and be able to connect, though we're a little bit farther away.
It's so true. I think we're 2.5 hours away from each other now. We used to live 15 minutes apart, like
Yep.
in just a city over. So I know this is COVID time, but I'm just glad that we can basically it feels like you're in the same room as me right now. So I'm going to pretend that that's what's going on. So thank you for being on the show today, Chris. So like a little background, Chris and I have known each other for about 12 years now. We met at our part-time job in Waterloo, Ontario, and we have spent many a good day and night together over those years. It's really funny because I always thought of you as being like this little sister that I never had, going through all of the relationship turmoil with you over the years of knowing you. It was definitely one of my most significant friendships, and I still think it's the same to this day. But for me, I'm basically a serial monogamist, so I think in a way, I actually live vicariously through you. So while you were sifting through these suitors that you had before you were even like 20 years old, I was in a committed relationship always. So
That doesn't make
I,
me sound very good at all. To be honest with you.
well, I'm like, I actually thought like to me, it was really thrilling because you were this girl who had all of these options. And I really admired it because like once you get out of high school, it's kind of not really common to have that. You know what I mean? Like all these crushes and people like, like I was just like, damn, this girl's got options. And I was like, I don't think I do. So I was like, I like this. Like, it's actually was really cool for me to be friends with you. It was just like this, you know what I mean? Experiencing that with you. But ironically, though, now you and I are in totally different stages of life. And I feel like the little sister, like the student has surpassed the teacher. So I'm like, I'm older than you, but I'm like, you're like, I'm happily married. I have a beautiful baby boy. And I'm like, um, yeah, I live here in like North Oshawa and it's pretty cool. Like, I don't know where my life is going. So, if you're wondering, audience, why I'm bringing up the past like this, it's because today's episode is what it's like to date online. Yes, as millennials, or older or younger, this is something that we've grown super accustomed to all the way back to the time when we hit puberty. So it's part of our progressive culture. It is the evolution of dating. It is the most efficient and effective way to meet new people. And it positions choice and option over settling and stagnation. So, kind of like what I was talking about earlier, the difference between you and I, even like a decade ago. And that does sound super promising when it comes to love or lust, right? Now, Chris, as I mentioned, you're a couple of years younger than me, but I want to talk about what it was like to crush as a young teen all the way back to those days. So, Chris and I have spent some time compiling a timeline of online dating and how that has changed over the years, and a lot of things that everyone who's listening is going to be able to relate to. And we're going to talk about our experiences throughout each of these stages. So, are you ready to get into it?
I'm like so ready. I'm ready,
you're
ready.
like,
It's gonna be so great.
you're like, I can barely contain myself. I'm ready. So, I
Yeah.
thought it would be funny to go back to like age 11 or 12 before we really used computers that much in our home or had like really good internet. I think that the evolution of this like online dating was passing notes in class to your elementary school crush.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. I think that we're kind of in a unique position because of our age that we actually can go back to that. Because anybody else that's a little bit younger than us kind of already started with the dating apps, you know what I mean? Like we started from the beginning. We're like pioneers.
Hell
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
girl. You're like, I
It was totally like the passing notes thing or being like, can you tell him like you're my best friend? Can you tell him like so and so has a crush, etc. Right? Like you always sound back with like those things. You remember?
yeah. You'd be like, will you go out with me? It was like when you had those three boxes, like yes, no, maybe. But like I
Yes.
remember there was this jock in my class, and I think I was in grade 7, so I was like 12 years old. And I wrote this like detailed note, like it had like cartoons of us. I got my friend to drop it off in his desk, like so it was totally anonymous. Like I
Oh.
wasn't drawn in it. But we before even like LOL or like all those like BRB like we're talking about, we actually used to sign all of our notes SWAK, so sealed with a kiss. And that's the first acronym that I remember. And like, so for me, it's very nostalgic. I didn't get any boyfriends from writing these notes, mostly because they were anonymous, which it's like
That
they
really
didn't
didn't help
serve
your situation. Yeah.
they didn't serve any fucking purpose whatsoever. But that's what I remember. And I think that kind of gave us probably like a little bit of a taste of what it's like to be almost like anti-socially social, right? Because a lot of online dating is like that. You're behind a screen, you don't have to like video chat or you don't have to do these things. It's like you can hide behind something. So that's a pretty big element of online dating, I think.
I think so too. I think what's funny is like with online dating, you can be so private and you can be like a totally different person. But back then, when you're just like passing notes, you had to rely on your people to be like, here, take this. Like, send it up 3 ways. And you like pass it 3 ways. I'm like, oh, the teacher's looking. So, like, hold it down, pretend you're doing nothing, and then like pass it over. Finally, it took like forever to get to your person. You're sitting there like holding your freaking breath. And then I remember in school passing a note to a guy, and it went to the wrong fucking dude. And
Oh
it went
no.
to the dude that like nobody crushed on in school. Okay, like
Oh.
the guy that like unfortunately would ruin your reputation, like for sending this thing to. And I remember thinking before I passed it off, being like, okay, I'm just like freaking out inside my head, but I just have this feeling it's gonna go to that guy. And of course, I put it out there, and it got sent to that guy, and he looked over, and oh, it was just like such a disaster, and I'm so mad. I'm like, can't you guys follow like simple instructions on who it goes to? Like, how does this get lost in the mix? But
You're like, don't fuck this up for me. And then You know what I mean? He probably felt so honored. You probably made his day, and then you're like, "Sorry, that was not meant for you." Like, you're
He
back to the
literally
bottom.
he literally followed me around the recess, like during
Oh,
recess for like weeks after. Like,
aw.
nice kid. Now that looking back at it, like kids can be so mean, but at the time, that was your life. That was your whole
That's social
reputation that was
suicide.
on.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
exactly the term. It was social suicide. Oh my God, I felt so bad. But
Watch, like, now you should look him up actually because we have the means. He's probably like a fucking very successful person. You know what I mean? He's got everything going for him. He's probably hot as hell. And you're just like, damn it. Why didn't I take you back then?
dude, I hope so because whew, it was not working for him back then. I really hope that it turned around. I really
You know
no,
what?
he was nice.
He's nice. Well, nice guys finish last. And I think that probably like for the next episode, you should look him up online and report back with how things are because I'm actually really interested to know. Really interested to know. So I think we should do that as
I can't
research.
remember. I can't remember his freaking last name. Otherwise, I totally would. We had like a, there was like certain names that you would associate or like certain rhymes associated with people's names. Like he was like one of those kids, unfortunately. So like I don't remember anything other than that.
Oh,
So I don't want to do that. But
sucks to be
yeah,
you, buddy. Oh well, maybe one day. So like aside from that, I know the next big thing that we were talking about was MSN Messenger. It was a godsend. I think I was 13 when I started using it. How old were you when you started using it?
yeah, I was in junior high because I remember it came out around like the 2000s. Like, so
Mhm.
I was in junior high when it first happened, and boy, my parents were like not stoked about me using that at all. I had like super
No.
strict parents, right?
Same. Yep.
So I had to like sneak on like the small little box computer that we had in the basement, like talk to people.
Oh man. But like that's how much trouble it was. I personally don't think anything good came of using that. Like I got my first boyfriend off MSN Messenger. His name was Simon. And I was like, my parents were same thing. Like they're like, no, no, you can't use it. But my best friend when I was in grade 8 had an amazing computer with a webcam. And I would be like, I want to go sleep over at
Hmm.
Courtney's house. And she'd be like, okay, mom's like, sure. And then we would like rent movies. I would just sit at her computer. Like I was the worst friend ever. And I would just talk to people all night. Like I did such bad things on her computer. Like you don't even know. And I was like, but but it's not just like chatting anonymously because you like your picture or whatever or your name like it's not always actually who you are. This is probably when like things like catfish started forming, but this I
Or
think
how
is
to
a
catch a predator, like
yeah.
those types of things.
Chris Hansen, yeah, NBC, Dateline, NBC. It's so true, but like, but this is actually like MSN Messenger. Do you remember you could actually link a profile to it? So this is actually like the moment in time where things like profile pictures, caption write ups for anyone to read, like about yourself or your interests. Those kinds of things were important to have. And you could put like funny pictures of stuff that, like, I remember like one of my pictures was like SpongeBob, but eventually you start taking webcam photos and then you would put that as your display picture. So it's kind of like an online dating profile because anybody could add your email and no one got up to good on MSN Messenger. It was always bad, always bad.
Oh, I totally agree with you. Like, I think it was the total start. I know that we had a couple of other, you know, other apps that like came out after MSN before
Oh, like
Facebook, but
ICQ.
yeah, like there was definitely some other ones where like you had the AOL chat and blah blah blah, but I think it was like the first start of what Facebook turned out to be like because I don't know about you, but I learned everything based off of somebody's like name within MSN, right? You could like put in your name, you'd see if somebody's dating somebody because you always put the heart emoji. You're like, oh, I love so and so, and then you'd find out if they broke up that way because they'd be like, rip so and so to get rid of them, right? Like I remember learning so much that way. Like you're talking about profiles and stuff, and I don't think I God, it's so far like back that I don't even remember if I did anything like that. I just like so focused on the name and I was so green growing up as a child. Like
Ooh.
the lingo, I remember like you would be ostracized for like not knowing certain lingo. Like BRB, I remember I was dating this guy or I was starting to date this guy. And, you know, it was just like the hand holding type of relationships you have
Oh
in junior high,
my.
right? I
Yeah.
know, so scandalous in the hallways, you get in trouble by the teachers.
No
uh,
touching. You're just like, sorry.
yeah, happened multiple times. Yeah. And he was saying these like acronyms to me, and I was like, I don't know what you mean. He's like, Christina, you need to get with it, or these people will eat you alive. I just like I remember being like, I have no idea what ICU means or LOL. I remember that's the first time I learned about what LOL was back on MSN. And it took me forever. And I didn't know if I was going to make it, but here I am today. So I
Yeah,
guess
this
I
isn't the
didn't do too
first
bad.
it's not the first time that this like social suicide thing has come up for you, eh? It sounds like a rough time.
It is. Honestly, I'm like a slow learner, so it was really quite difficult. But the other thing that I remember on MSN, and I know you know, like, and I know everybody knows what I'm talking about, like how you would choose to get somebody's attention. Like you would add somebody, and of course, for like us ladies, it would be a dude that we liked, and you wanted to talk to them, but of course, we don't talk to men first. You know, we weren't as like progressive back then,
Yep.
and you would just constantly sign yourself in and out, in and out, in and out, hoping to God. And then I remember being called on that one day and being like, yo, do you have an internet connection issue? Like, do you have a dial-up issue? Because you keep
You're like,
signing
I
in
think
and
my
out.
parents' computer is broken. You're like, it ain't working.
It's like mom's trying to get on the phone, but it's hooked up to fucking dial-up, so I gotta get out and log back in. Shit. But yeah, I remember that being a huge thing, and always, and then my heart would like flutter when I knew that my crush was back on
Oh
MSN
my,
because I saw that little light, right?
I feel you, like, exactly. There was this guy, okay, he was, like, 3 years older than me. He was in high school. His name was Matt Epple. He was, like, a really good skateboarder. He had, like, a shag, like, you know what I mean? He was hot as hell, and I was just like he was my crush, and when I added him, I just remember every single week, he would put a different girl's name in hearts, like, in his name, but he wouldn't be dating them, it would just be, like, his crush, and I'm like, "This dude's, like, the biggest player," and I was like, "I wanna know him," and my mom actually taught at the high school where he went. And she was just like, I left the house one night without her knowing, and I just disappeared because I went to go meet him outside. And I came home and she was like, "Where were you?" And my sister totally ratted on me and she's like, "She was with Matt Epple." And I was like, "Kelsey." My mom was like, "Matt Epple?"
Oh,
And she's just like, "He is trouble. He's no good for you. Like, you're not allowed to see him anymore." And I was like,
that's a
"Damn you,
bad apple.
MSN." And I was like,
Oh,
fucking, that was social suicide because I'm like, he could have been the love of my life. I'm kidding. He's a piece of shit. So I'm glad. I'm glad it didn't work out. But like, yeah, it was trouble. But I would get like little pitter patters in my chest when I saw his name like sign in. I was like,
yeah.
oh
Well, I don't
yeah.
know about you. I'm a serial reader of like like I was always like this, and then I'm not gonna go lie, I'm still like this, but like constantly rereading like messages because I can't help it. Like it's so messed up. But I remember the day that I learned how to like basically export the MSN chats
Oh
so that I could
shit.
like reread it, and then you would like take it and then you would show your friends and be like, did you see this? Did you read what he said? Like what do you think? Like do you think that it was like a thing? I think he's like flirty, but I'm not really quite sure. What do I say to the like next time, right? Like I remember doing that shit. I don't remember how to clear about browser history. That really fucked me up. But I do remember how to exported these like messages. So
Well, like, you hold on to the most important knowledge, right? And it sounds like you could have written a novel based on all your MSN chats with your crushes. So that's pretty cool.
yeah, I was pretty boy crazy from like the moment that I like popped into this earth, to be
How
honest
can
with
you
you. So
not be? Like, it gave you the opportunity to have like a private conversation with anyone that you're crushing on. Like, it's cool. And like going off of that, this is not something I've had much experience with, so I don't think we should spend too much time on it, but like MySpace. And I think MySpace was just, I know people younger than me and older than me that were obsessed with MySpace, but
hmm
MySpace was more so like you could talk to anybody and it was more about like your interests. It was about your photos and like what music you were into, like that, people would kind of get like this snapshot of you rather than knowing you, adding you, and then like developing something further. It was like you could basically add anyone in the world or whatever and be like, we like the same band. We have the same kind of style, that it was really connecting based on more like superficial things, I think. But I know a lot of people that have like still friends that they met on MySpace like to this day. So, but
Yeah, like MySpace was like a creative outlet. I think that's what it was.
yeah.
Because I don't know if you remember, but you could like change your background.
Mhm. Mhm.
I had like these crazy punk pink skulls in my
Hell
background, and
yeah,
it would
girl.
it would change depending on my mood and blah blah blah.
Well,
But
and
yeah,
like band like that's how you would get a lot of like new music and stuff because bands would put their music on MySpace, wouldn't they?
yeah, yeah. I
I'm
think
pretty
honestly,
sure.
I didn't spend a lot of time on MySpace. I do
Me
know
either.
that I'm pretty sure To Catch a Predator used MySpace like a lot though. I used
Then
to
thank
take
God we weren't on there.
And honestly, I'm trying to remember back, but I don't even remember how the messenger system even worked on MySpace because I just never used it for that, right? It was such a small blip of time, like 5, 6, 7, 8. It was only like 3 years where it was like the biggest and largest like networking system that had
That's
come
right.
out, right? And then
That's
it
right.
so quickly dropped off.
Yeah,
And
because of what? Facebook, 100% Facebook was like
exactly.
the fucking titan and just came over and was like, "Excuse me, MySpace." And yes, it
Yeah,
wouldn't be based on like Facebook was kind of like MSN Messenger where it's like you're going to start making this like network of friends that people you already know and then it grows and grows and grows, but like you know what I mean, to begin with anyways. We probably had like less than 100 friends on Facebook because it was people you knew when you were like barely in high school, right? Like
a
2007 I
hundred
think is when I
percent.
started using it.
Yeah, like I remember a boyfriend introducing it to me when I was in grade 10, and he's like, "You should go on Facebook." And I'm like, "What is this Facebook thing?" Like, I still have MySpace, but Facebook had come out like only a year after MySpace, and it just continued to grow and grow and grow into this like crazy big network. And for the longest time, I didn't use it. And
Yeah.
then in 2008, it came out with the messenger feature where you could just like do that instant chat that like we're so used to and we, take it for granted now, right? But
Oh
that's when it came
yeah.
out and I was about 17. And I think that's when it blew up for me at least.
Because it wasn't just like posting on walls, like you could actually use it as like instant messaging. It kind of harkens back to that like MSN Messenger thing where you're like you get best of both worlds. It's almost like it was putting those two things together in a way, like a bit more
Hmm.
efficiently than, what was previously done. But like on Facebook, like okay, have you ever met okay, I know okay, now I'm going in so many directions. I have to say, I know for a fact right now, like I don't know how long ago it was, but you can actually use Facebook for like online dating now.
Oh, I was literally just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember.
And
And
I didn't know that. Like somebody just told me that like a month ago and I was like, "Oh, really?" It's like random.
yeah,
Okay.
you can still use it to this day. I was just checking it out today because I was just curious and I was like, I remember that you had the Facebook dating app and I remember it was attached to like questionnaires within your group friends. So
Oh.
you could ask a question and be like, do you think this person is the most trustworthy? And you would get answers back. And it was like the most soul crushing thing ever to be able to look at that. But it was just based on what your peers' perceptions were of you. And it was totally anonymous. And then you
Oh.
could put in like your person that you were crushing on at the time. And if they also crushed on you, you would match with them and blah, blah, blah. Like I I only used it for such a short period of time, so I'm not very well versed, but
Yeah.
um I think still to this day it's like the freest thing that you can possibly use. Like no upgrade to see likes, no upgrade like for anything like that. It just seems a little bit
Oh.
it's
Like
like
most accessible.
exactly. But like for me, if I was single and ready to mingle, it would be like I know. It would be like the hardest thing for me to, it would be the hardest thing for me to use because I know you're not supposed to be able to match with people that are within your fate, like your group of people, your friends.
Yeah.
Um, but it just seems so almost unprivate. guess because now I
Well,
don't know why, just because
okay.
it's Facebook, it's associated to Facebook. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. If you think about it, Facebook, like in terms of online dating, it's funny that they're moving into that space because if you think about it, most of the time you don't meet people off Facebook and start dating them. Like I'll
Hmm.
say in the last like few days, I've gotten like 10 friend requests from random dudes that I don't know. And at first I was like, these people aren't real. And then I'm like, oh, they're adding you. And this one guy messaged me on the weekend. I was laughing. He's like, you got a special man in your life? And I was like, excuse me?
Hmm.
I was like, who the hell are you? Who the hell are you? I was like, no, thank you. So it's like, well, it's funny that Facebook is not where you technically meet new people to date. It's kind of like where you put your existing or your new dating life on display for other people. So
Hmm.
you say, yes, I'm in a relationship with so and so. I want everyone to see it. Here's a profile picture of me and my boyfriend kissing, or like, here's me and my husband. Here's our wedding photos. It's almost like yeah, it's not an online dating thing. It's funny that they're going towards that, but it's more so like a platform where you basically have all of that so people can see it. It's like a display case for people. But like
Yeah,
the,
100%.
I it's funny, okay, like I want to talk about Plenty of Fish because that's I know where we're going to get the most information out of you and you have the most experience. And you're not the only person like who I know who's used that. I used to use Plenty of Fish with my roommate and we set up like a fake profile just to troll people like before we knew what internet trolls were. And it was like it was hilarious. It was what we would do like on like weeknights. You know what I mean? Like I'm not interested. I was dating someone at the time, so I was like whatever, but it was fun. And I know someone who was like basically married to someone like a few years ago and I was like, "Where did you meet them?" They're like, "Oh, Plenty of Fish." I was like, "What?" I was like, people still
Hmm.
use that? Like, it's not something that I'm really familiar with. So I'd really like for you to take the floor on this one because I think you have a lot of knowledge about it.
Yeah, so as far as like those free like dating apps go, it's probably the oldest. So it came out in
Yeah.
like, yeah, it came out in like 2003, and it had the ability to do pretty much everything and like choose what you wanted. So it was like Tinder and all like, you know how each site has like a stigma to it, right? Like
Yeah.
each dating app has a stigma. So that's what Plenty of Fish started off to be like. They even had like intimate encounters back then. I had no idea until like up to recently, like heard something like that, which they stopped like, I guess, like 10 years later or something. But yes, POF was like the shit. At least it
POF.
was. Yeah, it was. Yeah, exactly. It was the shit for me at least. Like, I didn't want to use any fucking dating site other than POF because everything else stressed me the fuck out. But POF, I remember being so open with it. Like, there were so many people on it, so you had so many opportunities. There was like a thousand a thousand people that would message you a day, which is a little bit overwhelming. You have to like
Oh
weed through
my.
the bullshit. But amidst all the bullshit and dick pics, I met my husband.
You met your
Yes,
husband.
yes,
Woo!
right. That's where I met Yuri. And I still to this day, I'm gonna like share this like very intimate detail with you guys. Still to this day, I don't remember how the fuck it slipped my mind or how I like let it slide. I swear to God, I had mixed him up with somebody else because there was like so many fucking messages coming through, etc. But I remember getting all these non-unique lines, or like you get the generic "Hey babe," "Hey beautiful," or you'd immediately get the dick pic, or like you want to hook up,
Oh God.
or you get these like fucked up taglines or like these like cheesy pickup lines, and Yuri's, which like again, I don't remember it. I thought it was something else, I swear to God. But he said to me, he's like he goes, do you know what the scientists are saying? And somehow, some way I answered what? And he said, he's like, there's only gonna be 7 planets after I destroy Uranus. And somehow somehow it worked. And like I said, I still to this day strongly believe that I had fucked it up, mixed him up with somebody else because Anybody who had sent me stupid shit like that, I constantly was like, you're right off. You're right off. Fuck
You're
off.
right
Like,
up.
yeah, we're done. Like, but he slipped through the cracks. And I remember when he told me about that, he's like, do you remember the line I used on you? And I was like, no. And he told me, I was like, really? I fucking, I answered you back. And he goes, yeah. You were like, ha ha ha, you're funny. And I was like, what? And he goes, and I was like, I can't believe I fell for that shit. And he's like, well, he's like, I used that particular line on you because I needed to know if you had like a good sense of humor. And I'm like, that's the most fucked up way that you could ever, like, you're getting bombarded constantly like, as a female by all these messages. Like, that's the last thing that you're thinking about. You're like, this is just some other horn dog that's like messaging me. But to my husband, it made perfect sense. Like, just talk about the distinct line between male brains and female freaking brains.
Totally. It's like,
Totally
what's
different.
important? She's gonna laugh at my joke. Like, she's gonna be like laid back. I did have a dude like on another dating app. I won't say it yet because we have to get there. But he did say this is like the most important like message I ever got. He was like, okay, I need to rob a bank. I need someone who can drive the getaway car as my accomplice. Like, what are we going to spend the money on? Will you do it? And you have the most beautiful eyes, so you're going to look amazing in a mugshot. And I was like, okay. I was like, I'm into this. Like, that kind of
Yeah.
effort, like what he did, like that's like Yuri, his way of being almost like alpha, not being like, hey baby, like I'm gonna take you out. He's just like, no, how am I gonna stand out from the rest of the pack? How do you distinguish yourself? Like, how do you, because it's literally like Plenty of Fish is hilarious. It's a sea full of millions of fucking fish. How are you gonna make sure that someone picks you? It's really tough. It's a numbers game, you know?
Yeah, totally. And um I think it's really hard. Like, I actually, like, my heart goes out to the dudes that like try to hook up with chicks on these types of sites because
Yeah.
there is so much that a woman's getting bombarded with. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's so it's not you guys, okay? It's specifically the female because each female is drawn to certain things. So some chicks like the hey babe or hey beautiful. Some chicks are like, yeah, let me see that dick pic. Some other chicks are like, no, tell me what car you would drive in a getaway car. Like,
That's
like
so true.
every chick is so different. So I find it actually I think it's pretty hard for the girls, or sorry, for the guys. And I think the girls get really jaded very freaking fast because I definitely did. I was gonna delete it real quick because I was like, this is just too much for me. I can't handle it right now. And I think a lot of people go through that. You like stay on a dating site for a while, then you drop off of it for a bit because you need like a
Yep.
freaking breather.
Yep.
And then you get back on that horse hard and you just go back
And
to
you
it
ride it and you ride it into the sunset. No, it's true. Like, it can be exhausting when it's a numbers game. Think about it. Like, I talk to girls about it all the time, or people, like guys and girls. You're having the same conversation with 30 people. What do you do? Like, it's hard to keep track of each
hmm
one. They don't stand out, but you're like, fuck, I'm scared to give up on any of these contenders, especially if you're looking for more than just a hookup, that you're like, man, like, what if I, walk away from this one, but I don't feel a spark? But what if they're like a really, really good guy and I'm just not giving them a chance? Or like, what risk you take? That, don't you think, as an evolution, of online dating, as an evolution, that like, because just as much as guys will basically be like, have a strategy for how that they are proactively approaching women or guys, whatever, that the receiver, or like as a woman, a guy's going to reach out first for the most part, right?
hmm
That the woman should basically have something indicating on her profile to say like what kind of approach she likes, or like what kind of guy she's into, because we're always talking about ourselves with online dating. We're not saying necessarily what we're looking for fully, besides like, I want something real. You know what I mean? But what if we were like, I like a sweet guy who, you know what I mean, sends me like good morning texts, or you know what I mean, something like that. And that would actually make it a lot easier, and we get approached by the right people, and it'd be a lot less of this like dissatisfaction with immediate reactions. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And then on the flip note, I don't, only because I I would run out of characters like before I was even able to like fill that shit out. Because for me, it's so dependent on the dude. Like, and I'm being 100% real here. Hate me or love me.
Well, you have
It's
more experience than I do, so tell me. Yeah.
for me, it's based on the dude. So if I look, oh God, it sounds so shit. But again, hate me or love me, if you look a certain way, I can possibly overlook the fact that you sent me, hey, beautiful, which is something that I normally don't go for. I
Oh.
could potentially go for it. But if you look a different way or you have certain interests and you answer a way I don't like I'd have to match them up. And then before you know it, like my whole profile would be like 100 pages long and then it wouldn't work. Like I'm a very particular individual. Do you know what I mean?
You definitely
Like
are, yes.
I think my dating history has allowed me to be like this. Like whether like you're saying, like um, my history with lots of relationships, like this has allowed me to be able to nitpick on what I really
Yep.
like and what I don't like. And online dating allowed me to do so. Like when you said, you're afraid to let go of certain relationships or certain guys during conversations because you don't know if maybe you'll create a spark later and blah blah blah. Not gonna lie, was never my problem. I was
That's
always
so
like,
funny. Oh.
I would actually carry the conversation bleedingly long, like nose bleedingly long for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, because I was just like, no, I don't need to rush this. Like, I got this guy and this guy I'm talking to and that guy and shit. If none of these work out, I will open up my DM and find like 100 more. And that's not me being cocky. That was just what POF was like.
Well,
So
okay, question for
yeah,
you.
go
Like,
ahead.
because of what we're going to move on to next, which is like all the more like modern dating apps, or I guess like more used than POF. I still didn't know POF POF was a thing until maybe like 6 months ago when like my buddy told me that he still used it. And I'm like, people still use Plenty of Fish? I
Yeah,
was like,
man.
cool. But like, okay, you don't like Plenty of Fish, it probably sorts in some way like what's most relevant to you or like what's best. Like there's some algorithm that's basically being like, here's a good pick, but you're not basically it's nothing like Tinder or like Bumble where you're like swiping and stuff, right?
No, and you know what? It's changed a lot since
Okay.
I first used it like 7 years ago. Well, didn't
Mm-hmm.
first use it 7 years ago, but when I met my husband, I stopped using it. It's changed a lot.
Well,
So
I'd
the
hope
format,
so.
yeah, the, the
You're like,
format
and I
back,
still use it.
yeah, it's just like on my secure folder on my phone. No,
Yeah.
um,
Naughty,
it,
naughty. Okay.
yeah. No, it's changed so much since then. So back then it was kind of a free for all. And yes, there was, I'm sure, an algorithm that allowed you to connect based on your personal interests, etc. But I think Tinder kind of took over that hookup
Oh, yes.
kind of ideology, and POF took a really big turn. So like I said, like they removed things like intimate encounters as like your status of like what you're looking for, and they
Oh,
changed it to being more like love oriented. And um it's there's like in-depth, like crazy in-depth questions that I find super personal now.
yeah.
But that's what they kind of go into now versus beforehand. So I think that it probably limits the amount of people that like slide through your DM that way. But like for me, these dating apps has changed so much. Like I remember when all of these things were free, like who viewed you and stuff like that were free. Now it's like
Yeah.
upgrade to gold premium package, bullshit number one, to be
Oh,
able to get
yeah.
to be able to see who liked you, and you need to match. But then when you guys match, you can see each other's profile. But if you're both not VIP members, then you can't message each other. Do you know what
Yeah,
I
you're
mean? Like
like,
there's
"Oh, fuck you." You're like, "Do you really care about my future and my, like, relationships?" And it's like, it's a tease. Just because someone likes something of you, like, it's all bullshit. It's all a money grab. Yes. People who
and
work
it's
on these sites need to make money. Yes. But come on now.
oh, it's just a little bit too extreme. Like, and then what's fucked up is this is what's caused everybody to be so uh like you feel like you've been boxed into a corner. You have no other choice, right? You just don't
Yep.
meet people. Well, now in COVID, you just don't meet people off the street anymore. Do you know what I mean? So
It's very
the
true. Like,
the dating
well,
sites have changed like a lot.
It's very true. Like, and I guess probably the most used ones, like we were talking earlier, like Hinge isn't one that I really hear people talk about. All the like only thing I've heard is like it's more targeted for like if you're like really looking to like settle down type thing. And I'm like, that's good, but I don't know anyone that uses it, which is ironic that most people I know who use Tinder or like Bumble are looking for that. So why they aren't using Hinge, I'm not sure. But like, I don't know, like Bumble it has a nice like value proposition to it where it's like what the women have to reach out first, right? So
Yeah, I find that
you
super
feel like
cool.
you're not being harassed or whatever, but at the same time, like isn't the most appealing thing about like online dating or like dating apps that you're the one who's being pursued because you like a guy who has like that cardinal drive to like, you know what I mean, like reach out to you.
Is it
Like
is it Tasha, or is it like just a huge ego boost when you have like how many messages and you're like, yeah, I'm king shit. Let's call it what it is. You know what I mean? It is an ego boost. Whereas
yeah.
Bumble, you have to be pretty serious about acknowledging the fact that you have to make that effort. You have to be
Yeah.
pretty comfortable with yourself that
Yeah.
to like to know that there's a possibility that you're not going to get a message back. Like Bumble, believe it or not, I have no real experience with. I was about 23 when it came out, and I was
Yeah.
already like I had already met Yuri, so I missed that mark of Bumble. You'll probably have more ideas on that. I have some friends that used it, but yeah, that would be my take on it. At least that you have to be pretty confident to use it as a female.
Definitely. And you know what? Like Tinder's been around for quite a long time. Like I used to use it for fun with one of my exes. Like we would actually just be like, this is fun. Like, you know what I mean? As like
Mm.
a Friday night activity, like completely innocent, like whatever. Just like, let's just see who we match with. Ha ha ha. But like at the same time, it's like Tinder's been around for a long time. I feel like Tinder is still like the go-to. But Bumble basically took things and tried to role reverse, which is an interesting evolution in and of itself. Like put the power back in like a woman's hands and she
Mm-hmm.
gets to decide like like I don't want to just be like seriously like have inboxes like full of like messages of guys being douchebags or guys just like you know what I mean, it becomes overwhelming. Like no, I'm a woman, I get to pick and choose, like you know what I mean, what am I going to put my work into, like whatever. So it is definitely an evolution of online dating or dating apps, it truly is. um it's just I feel like Tinder is still the king. Like I don't know about you, but
Yeah, so I personally never used Tinder just because of the stigma of it being a hookup site. And I was always
mm,
really afraid of how much value or quality would be from the guys on Tinder. So that's why I chose not to use it. But I 100% agree that it's like the largest, biggest dating site out there. Everybody freaking uses it. I'm sure you have some doozies off of Tinder. I know I've heard a couple, but yeah, it's like the biggest one out there.
it totally is. And I think like before we move into like the next segment, which is basically going to be talking about where do we go from here and where is online dating lacking and how we're moving faster than it's evolving, is that online dating is complicated. Dating apps are complicated because if I'm going to put myself on a dating app, I'm going to show you, Chris, you're my ideal partner. Okay. So I'm going to be like, I'm thinking of you. I'm going to put out my like 5 best, most complimentary photos of myself that I've edited, that I'm posing for. And then I'm going to write up something about myself that is what I think of myself, but is not objectively true. And I'm going to start
Hmm.
talking to you and I'm going to tell you all the things you want to hear. And it's just a bunch of BS. And so you and I are vibing. Okay. You're starting to catch feelings for me because you have made up an image based on my photos and everything that I want you to hear of who I am, which is very idealistic. So guess what? If we talk for a week, 2 weeks, 2 days, you've already got like this expectation in your mind. So when we meet face to face, you're always going to be like let down. Like that element of organically meeting someone like in a bar, like when you're at school, like you know what I mean, in like at work, like something like that just disappears. So I really do feel like, and no matter who I talk to about it, it's like you never look like your photos, you never look that good. You know what I mean? Maybe your voice doesn't sound the same, or maybe you're not as tall as I thought you were. or maybe, you know what I mean, all of these things, but already have developed such a strong expectation of who I think you are before I meet you, and then I meet you, and then, like, the feelings sometimes just don't go along with, like, what you know what I mean, that initial
Hmm.
face to face, and I think that's a huge problem, like, why are we're putting in all this extra effort with, like, multiple people at the same time, but then when you end up meeting them, it's like sometimes it feels like such a waste because you're like, "Well,
Oh
there's no
yeah.
chemistry, and couldn't I just fucking figure this out by meeting you here or here?" Like, it actually takes a lot more
Hmm.
work because there are so many more options. It actually is, like, a lot more work, I think. That must be why.
Yeah, and you know what? It's actually a really good point. And for anybody who's interested on how to potentially avoid that, my husband is like the king of that. So you know Yuri, he's like a straight shooter, no bullshit. Like the things that the things that he says are like so what's the word I'm looking for? He's just that straight shooter. So uh sometimes it comes across rude, but in reality it's just like makes perfect sense. But I'm so censored with certain thoughts that I'm just like, ugh, that's like cringeworthy. But like he said to me when we were discussing like the whole dating scene online and stuff, and he's like, "Well, I didn't fuck around, Chris." He's like, within a day or so of talking to an individual, he goes, "I got them right on webcam." He's like,
Oh,
or
yeah,
or like
good.
on video. And he's like, "I'm not screwing around." He goes, "A, I need to know that you're a chick. I'm not being catfish. That's number one. Number two, what the fuck happens if you have a fucked up voice? Or I don't like the way you laugh or anything like that." He's like,
Yeah.
let's just get rid
Deal
of this and
breakers.
do this. Yeah, he's like, let's just get this out in the open. And I think that's really the distinguishing factor between many people. I think Yuri is like that exception or that small group of people who like don't want to waste that time. And then so many other people that are like, I'm too afraid. Let's just carry that fantasy out a little bit longer. Do you know what I
Yep.
mean? And then end up getting disappointed in the end. If everybody was just a little bit more upfront and being like, all right, let's get on video, let's chat about this and that. Like, sure, you can bullshit about what you do for a living or whatever, but you can't bullshit those like distinct characteristics about yourself that
Yes.
either
That make you who you are, that you can't
exactly,
change. Yeah.
that's either motherfucking annoying to other people or is genuinely a very attractive thing, right? Like,
Yep.
so a way a person carries themselves, you don't see those things over a text message. So you immediately create this like you said, this beautiful person in your head, and then you see them and you see that they choose to slouch or they fidget or some things that
Yep.
just
Yeah,
kind of
you,
turn you
like,
off
almost like
after.
if you're, like, a romantic person, you fall in love with who they want you to think they are,
Hmm.
and it's, like,
Hmm.
the best version of themselves, which, yes, is not and that's interesting, like, I know guys, like, too, like, they'll be like they say, like, like, if they're gonna put out a line, one of the first things they say is, "You need to video chat with me immediately or, like, this goes no further," and I'm like, "That's actually says so much about online dating in itself," like, that
Hmm.
there is so much, like, frustration and exhaustion, like, there's no time to, like, dick around anymore. If you're serious, like, be
Hmm.
respectful, like, there is common courtesy, you know what I mean? There should be like, these certain rules that are followed, like, whatever. But, like, we were talking earlier, I wanna get into this before we're out of time, which is about like where things are going because I think you said you actually know someone who's like moving into this other evolution of online dating because they're in a committed relationship but they're looking for something more.
Yes. So, like, I live a very traditional life with my husband. I'm married, I have a child, blah, blah, blah. But I have some very unique friends. And one of my friends is a couple. And, you know, just by looking at them, you would never think anything other than just a traditional relationship there. But
Yeah.
they're actually trying to get involved in this threesome. I'm not naming names. I don't want to out to anybody. They gave me permission to talk about it.
Surprise.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. But I actually had a conversation. I was so excited because, my life is traditional and mundane and boring sometimes. So I'm so excited to get involved in other people's juicy relationships. So
Yeah,
anyways,
girl.
she was,
Yeah.
yeah, so she was talking to me about it, and she's like, listen, so, it's a big thing. I'm looking to involve like another girl. We don't know kind of where to start, etc. I'm like, girl, I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna do anything that you want.
I
I will
got you.
interview these people beforehand, like whatever you need. So the thing that she talked to me one night and she was like super frustrated, and she's like, what just sucks is that I'm trying to hit up um these distinct sites that are like threesome swingers, um fetish oriented sites. And she's like, they're just not fucking working. It's not even that this idea of this unicorn, which is like this girl who just wants to hook up with a couple, like doesn't exist. It's the fact that there's not a lot of people on them, and it's not as simple as like going on Plenty of Fish. We have 1,000 people that are like followers on this site. It's like very, very unique and distinct, and you don't have as many people within your area and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, so she's finding it actually super difficult. And I asked her, I'm like, why don't you try these regular generic sites like POF or Tinder? And a couple of things happen. She's like, number one, I keep reading about how much people like in her case, right? She's like, in our case, it's wanting to hook up or bring another chicken into our relationship. She's like, these girls who are on Tinder have voiced their opinions that they hate this and they hate that people will hit them up that way. She's like, but not only that, there's no place for it. She's like, how do you even, create a freaking profile relating to it? So I thought it was interesting. And because I'm a very stubborn person, like, no, girl, like, I don't think you know what you're talking about. Like, let me assist you with this. I'm gonna help
Yeah.
you up.
You're like, I'll do the
Um,
work. Like,
yeah, 100%. I'm like, don't fret. I've got your back. So I started to look into it, and she's not wrong. Like, for yeah, like even on Tinder, like there's no place where you like as far as we've come to being able to put different genders on and all those things, there's no section of this where you can put in other adventures where you're like, I know we're a couple and we're looking for a female or a male or whoever, and then being able to filter through people who are potentially interested and open to those things. There's no room for it on these generic dating sites because they're all supposed to be about, you know, finding your true love and blah blah blah. But there's nothing that says like finding your true love doesn't have an extra person, is not a
yeah.
throuple or like anything like that. And I think that's what the dating apps are still lacking because it's probably not widely talked about. But I have heard some other of my friends that are like, yeah, I've hooked up with a girl from the random site and blah blah blah, and she wasn't actively saying she was looking for a threesome, but it came up and it was kind of a unique situation. And I'm like, if you gave people that opportunity, like, how do I explain this? Like, if you're say it's you, Tasha, right? Like you were able to sign up on your profile and create your profile about who you're
Yeah.
looking for, but also have like an optional section where you could say, yeah, I'm down and interested in having um like threesomes, or I'm down to hook up with just another girl, not just I'm straight, but maybe I'm curious, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then be able to have that kind of hidden, because I think some people are uncomfortable with that stuff. Even be
Yeah.
able to have it hidden until somebody else, like a couple, is able to come along, or somebody who is bisexual or anything like that, that can match with you that easily. Like, I think that's where this needs to go. That dating app aspect needs to go because there are a lot of people hurting for that throuple person.
It's
You know what
so
I mean?
true. Like, I know people who have been unicorns and it happened organically and they loved it. Absolutely loved it and they rave about it. Like, there's no better position than being a unicorn. And I'm like, really? But it's like, yes, until that becomes more like widely accepted and they make a competitive app that's like as big or not going to be as big of a market as Tinder because you know what I mean, but can be on that level. Like, I know a friend of mine was married It was like kind of like a risky marriage, but no one really had faith in this couple. And I think they lasted a year or two. And then she ended up leaving him because she became a polyamorous pansexual. And I'm like, I have nothing but respect for her. But like, what's so funny is that she was on this hunt or like this mission to basically find you know what I mean? Anybody, or like, she would have dated like a trans person or, tried anything. And she ended up with another regular boyfriend. And I'm like, that to me
Mhm.
speaks volumes about what it's like to kind of like have this vision or like this idea of love or what you're looking for in a relationship and not finding it because online dating simply is not keeping up, which is like, here are some points that I think that we've kind of come to throughout this episode that I think are really important, which is online dating makes the world feel pretty small, but big at the same time. It's just you have access to meeting anybody. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
miles and miles away if you want. On the other side of the world, like 90 Day Fiance is a show and like a reality TV show because of online dating and dating apps. Um, Globalization, which is also thinking about like the world feeling smaller than it is, there's this reassurance that there's so much out there that if it doesn't work out, it's okay. Like you'll find somebody new. There's plenty of fish in the sea, like the classic. Like no wonder they called that
Mhm.
their app. And like if you have any second guesses, if you are currently in a relationship, a marriage, like if you're not feeling fulfilled, you can connect with thousands of people immediately by downloading something on your phone. Like so it is like I don't know, it's like it's unsettling in a sense if you're in a committed relationship because everything's a threat. You know what I mean? Like you can
Mhm.
cheat on somebody by just going on your phone. It's like nothing. It's pretty crazy. So what does the future look like for monogamy, for traditional relationships? Like you're in a marriage right now, a traditional marriage, and like you're
Mhm.
younger than me. And I'm like, that's it says something because a lot of people I know a lot of people who are married and they got married very young, like in their early 20s, but a lot of people I know are still single or are looking for like this kind of like interesting or unique dynamic in their relationship. So we're kind of all spaced out all over the map. And there's a long way to go in terms of keeping up with the demands of consumers or daters. And like we were just saying, like where do we go from here? There's so much more that people want that we're just not being exposed to yet. Instead of online dating and dating apps and dating programs and platforms driving our needs, we're now basically in the driver's seat and we're like, can you please like listen to what it is that we want? Because we're just
Mhm.
not getting it exactly. There's just so much out there like sexually and in terms of like love, lust, relationships, like there's just so much more there. There's a lot of room for growth. So anyone who designs like apps, like whatever, like listen, because here's a good opportunity. But we're getting really close to the end. All I want to say is that I think I speak for both of us, Chris, that we say that we hope that you guys learned something valuable and that you can relate to the stories that we shared and all the experiences of what it was like growing up with all of these experiences. And we would love to hear about your own experiences with online dating and how that has impacted the course of your life. Um, in the future, we're going to be releasing a series called Tales of Tinder, which is really exciting. And that's going to be definitely like a shorter series interspliced. And I think it's going to be hilarious. So we're looking for stories on that. We do have a couple in the pipeline. So get in touch via email or Instagram. We're also going to set up a new email address for this show specifically, I think, and an Instagram account. And please follow, share, like, subscribe, everything. Do you have anything last minute to say, Chris?
No, I think you hit it like right on the head. Just thank you so much for letting me be a part of this. And this was so ridiculously fun. And I can't wait to hear, what everybody has to say, especially for the Tales of Tinder thing. Oh my God.
It's going to be epic. It's going to be so much fun. Honestly, those are going to be hilarious episodes. But I think we should probably do video for that. But Chris,
Agreed.
thank you so much for joining me. Like I had such a good time hanging out with you. It's nice to be able to do this during COVID. Anyways, we will see you for the next show. Stay tuned for what's coming. This is Tosh signing off. Bye, Chris. Talk to you soon.
See you later.
Bye.